Hello and welcome to Daily Politics on Trust TV. On this program, we discuss issues around politics, policy, and governance. I am Shafiu Suleiman. President Tinubu had, shortly after taking oath of office last year, announced the end of petrol subsidy in Nigeria, a top policy option that has pushed the pump price of petrol to almost 700 naira per litre and triggered a rising cost of living across the country. The decision to remove subsidy on petrol was followed by the floating of the naira after removing some form of intervention initially provided by the Central Bank of Nigeria to support the nation's currency and guarantee some level of stability in the forex market. The ultimate objective was to save the country huge resources running into trillions of naira, hitherto used to finance some shadowy subsidy claims and providing additional liquidity by the central bank to support the naira while allowing it to find value for itself against other currencies. While the federal government insists the policies are for the good of the nation despite public outcry against their unintended ripple effects, critical policy analysts have alleged that the claim was not true, as the federal government is surreptitiously paying for the subsidy and providing support for the naira as it keeps majority of Nigerians in the dark over a possible reversal. A recent revelation by former governor of Kaduna State Nasir El-Rufai at a workshop in Maiduguri that the federal government is currently spending about 1 trillion naira monthly to pay for fuel subsidy as against its earlier claim, which he said actually was higher than what was obtainable during the previous administration, has further confirmed earlier concerns around the Tinubu government may have been engaging in policy flip-flops. It is against this backdrop we'll be engaging with a professor of public policy at the Nasarawa State University, Kepi, Professor Hussaini Tukur, to examine the implementation of the top policy options and their purported reversal through the back door. Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming, Prof.
Thank you very much. You're welcome.
Yes, but before we begin the conversation, here are some tidbits. The Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment says it has begun disbursement of the Presidential Conditional Grant Scheme to verified applicants after an exhaustive selection process. The government, through the Bank of Industry, has said it will be disbursing 3 categories of funding totaling 200 billion naira to support manufacturers and businesses across the country. In a progress report posted on X, formerly Twitter handle, on Tuesday, the Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, Doris Anyete, stated that an unspecified number of beneficiaries had received their grants, adding that by Friday, April 19, another significant disbursement will be made to a substantial number of verified applicants. And elsewhere, 4 of the 13 former governors in the Senate and 21 other senators have not sponsored any bill since June 13, 2023, when the 10th National Assembly was inaugurated, Daily Trust findings have shown. Now, the ex-governors in the Senate, Senate President Godswill Akpabio, Akwa Ibom, Aliyu Amoko Sokoto, Abdulaziz Yari Zamfara, Aminu Tambuwal Sokoto, Adams Oshiomhole Edo, Ibrahim Nankwambo Gombe, Abubakar Bello Niger, Oji Kalu Abia, Seriaki Dixon Bayelsa, Adamu Aleru Kebbi, Danjuma Goje Gombe, Benga Daniel Ogun, and Simon Lalong Plateau. Another document obtained by Daily Trust from the National Assembly showed that from June 13, 2023 to March 14, 2024, 25 senators, including 4 former governors, have not sponsored any bill. Now we'll take a short break, and when we return, our conversation with Professor Hussaini Tukur commences. Stay with us. Thank you very much for staying with us. And once again, thank you for coming, Professor.
Thank you very much.
Yes, let's begin with tidbits. We've had some of the key issues trending today. Let's start with the one that has to do with 200 billion naira that is set for disbursement by the Bank of Industry. Now, the federal government says it is doing this to support small businesses and other industries and small businesses. It's coming at a time perhaps Nigeria is grappling with serious economic challenges, and also that led, to almost the collapse of the industry. What do we make up with this intervention, looking at the fallout of previous interventions, especially the ones that have gone through perhaps the CBN and others through the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and so on and so forth?
Well, taking a look at what had happened over the years, one may not be optimistic about the effort and the success in future of those loans, as well as the recovery of the loans. Where beside this, the CBN is not a conventional bank for banking development or investment development. And therefore, what we had, the experience CBN had in issuing loans to unknown individual, unverified address, led to what we had seen, especially in the agricultural sector.
The Anko Borrower.
The Anko Borrower and other similar programs.
Interventions.
Yes, it would have been successful if the central bank would have utilized the existing finance development banks. Those are conventional, they have been there, they had the experience, and they can verify all the addresses. They can even verify the businesses, the loan requirement, the collateral, the gestation period, the skills required, and all this conform the package of the loan, and therefore the recovery could be easier.
That's right.
And taking into consideration this very loan, coming from the
Bank of Industry.
Bank of Industry, one will say that it is important at this time that especially medium and small scale industries are yearning for investment, finance investment, and therefore in most countries what is required is soft loan. Loans whose interest is very low, that will stimulate investment, stimulate economic growth, stimulate production, and therefore will create opportunities for job and rejuvenate the economy. This is very important. But what I will also concern about is that at this moment, nobody knows the number of industries, because it's said to be unverified.
Yes, I'm actually coming to that, because virtually everything is
being... In a nation like Nigeria, you are dispersing a loan of over 200 billion. You do not, especially the political leadership of the Ministry of Industry, the minister, does not know the number of verified industries that have applied and those that will be dispersed and how much they will be dispersed, in which sector of the economy. That's questionable. And therefore one will start wondering whether it is actually the ministry, the bank is prepared for those particular loans. We should know exactly who will be the beneficiaries and how much will they benefit, where they will invest, when is the gestation period, and how the money will be repaid. These are very important in any economy, especially when the money is coming from public finance institutions. Yes, especially government-owned financial institutions.
Right. Okay. That actually come to, the issue I want to raise, concerning transparency, of the whole process, because the minister is saying that, an unspecified number of beneficiaries had received their grants, and then is also saying that disbursement will be made to a substantial number of verified applicants. So it all shrouded somehow in secrecy.
Yes, that means there is no transparency, no accountability. And in any democracy, what sustains the support, public support, and public support to the government is when things are clear, open, and verifiable.
That's right.
That makes people to have confidence in the process, in the government, and its ability even to deliver its promises. When the link is no longer there, people are in doubt as to whether it is a propaganda or it is actually a reality. These are issues that under democracy, under a democratic system of government, such should not happen at all. Detail about all the activities of government should be open, should be clear. Although we know there are things that are classified, but they are not under
this
such kind of
this is public intervention.
Yes. These are the issues.
Right. Okay. Beyond even the intervention in the first place, we're talking about reviving businesses or supporting businesses and industries to survive. In the last couple of months, so to speak, substantial number of industries were said to have closed shops as a result of the climate, the environment. The operating climate. The Naira, Forex, and all of that. And here we are with an intervention. Is that what is needed? Could this be, a policy, a misplacement of priority? Because some would say the business class or the business people in the business sector, what they require is an enabling environment for them to be able to remain in business. So you support them with loans, and then the environment is not conducive. What happened?
Well, the issue of financing investment in Nigeria has been the most important single issue that has been given most attention by successive governments since the 70s. If you look at organizations, institutions that were established right from the 60s, the 70s, it is based on the assumption that what a businessman requires is finance. And therefore, if we open windows for financing business, that means we have solved the problem of lack of finance in terms of investment. And that is why you have so many agencies that came into being right from the 60s up to date. Now, that is not important. What is important is that research has shown that most people that fail in terms of businesses are those that do not have prior experience, either in the public or the private sector in terms of running business. Although we cannot rule the fact that there are those that can succeed, but the most important aspect is the skill. Managing investment, managing skills, and also updating skills, requiring people that will handle the business, those that will handle the production aspect, and so on. This is lacking. Although we have so many agencies in Nigeria that were established for acquisition of skill, especially for the private sector, like the Industrial Training Fund. But over the years, companies prefer to pay for the training, but renege on sending their staff for training. And this issue has never been addressed. So
but why do they do that?
They do that. It's the same. They prefer, for instance, in the past, the civilian had a policy right from the 70s until in the early 2000 that policy was reneged. The policy is that every bank must invest 10% of its profit in small and medium scale enterprises. That is, but banks normally give them. They prefer to refuse to advance the loan to those who require it and pay the penalty of 10% to the central bank, which is a penalty under the policy. They will prefer. You may ask yourself, why do they do that? They have realized over time the recovery of such loan was sometimes impossible. For those who come to the bank, present a bankable proposal, eventually you give them the loan, and then they renege. Yes, and then you cannot. So you prefer to pay penalties than to advance, and that is a minus to the economy. And that is also pointing out that to the fact that skills in terms of running in various types of investment do not exist in the economy, and therefore those things are required.
So in other words, these packages ought to have captured all of this, in terms, there should have been components for capacity building, for skills,
acquisitions,
and all of that.
For the running of the businesses, this should have been the component. For instance, in China, essentially you cannot get a loan until you prove You have the skill, you have developed the ability, you have to show
the plans are viable,
and therefore you have to be satisfied that you can, and then loan can advance to you, not only from the development finance institution government owned, but also from private individuals that are ready to invest in viable projects. So such also can be emulated in Nigeria.
Right. Away from that, let's look at the performance of the lawmakers. We've had one of the tidbits they are talking about 21, senators, 13 former governors in the Senate, 21 other senators have not sponsored any bill since inauguration. What do you make up with that? Some would say they are perhaps maybe prepared chasing some of those palliatives, if you like, and all of that.
Well, in democracy, it's not necessary that every representative of people from any constituent of the country should provide or sponsor a bill. No, it's not necessary. If everyone is to sponsor a bill, for instance, in the Senate, we should have had, for instance, in 1 year or right from their inauguration to date, 109 bills.
Right.
And when you go to the House of Representatives, you see, the function of a legislator is not to solemnly sponsor a bill, rather to represent the interests of the constituency. And sometimes when we come to a National Assembly, it's no longer the interest of the constituency, but the conglomerate interest of Nigeria at the national level. That is what is discussed at the National Assembly. And therefore, the role of the legislature is not only to make law, is not only also to provide oversight function, but also to regulate certain activities in the society, not through lawmaking, but through sponsoring of motions and other things like that. And even oversight function today in Nigeria is the most important function that takes almost all the time of legislation. Public hearing is part of oversight function. And you have so many committees working at the same time. How long it takes to provide a result is there. If you talk about oversight function that include visitation from one end to the other, not just visiting a ministry, sitting down, be brief even, because some members of the committee do not even understand the sector in which they are posted to oversight, and therefore they need extensive briefing from that, and to also understand the requirements of those, and to also oversight what kind of provision has been made in the budget, approved, endorsed by the president, and the project are currently being executed or not, and so on and so forth. This chunk of function is enough to take away the whole attention of legislatures.
Even though what the constituents want to see is to see the legislators being actively participating in the legislative business. For instance, a number of them, you find them not even attending sessions, and some sleeping and all of that. Perhaps what the constituents used to measure their performance is their ability to sponsor bills that are, that have direct bearing on their also existence. Because you find some of them sponsoring bills in relation to happenings within their localities. Isn't that...
it is important that you sponsor bill or you collaborate with a ministry or an agency that has certain responsibility that affects your constituency for them to provide such. That is part of lobbying process under democracy. You lobby a minister, for instance, you need school, you need water, you need this, and then the minister realizes there is need for that, and then collaborate with you and provide that. But in Nigeria, there is something different. It is no longer the agencies, institution, or ministry that determine what should be provided. It is what the lawmakers consider as constituency project, which should not have been in existence at all.
That's right.
And therefore, that is what brings the issue of budget padding. You must include something in your budget.
What is of interest?
Yes, whether there is project owners, because from the budget finding, from the stories we have, is that money are allocated without direct link with any project.
Yes, that was what was found.
If that is the case, then it is not a money for a project, because there is no project. It has not prepared. It's not part of the budget.
They are hidden mostly in some ministries that even doesn't have direct, they have no expertise on what is
related to a particular project. For instance, when you take rural feeder roads to the Ministry of Health, I think you are just joking. You are not interested in the roads. You are interested in the funds.
Talking about something very fundamental, when you talk about the need, to sponsor bill, to lobby and all of that, what stops perhaps senators coming from a particular region that is battling insecurity, for instance, the Northwest, coming together to sponsor a bill that would change the narrative, perhaps compel the federal government to do certain, to consider certain policies that would, help address the problem. We are dealing with ungoverned spaces, we are dealing with deficiency in terms of deployment of security personnel, and people are also talking about the need to engage local communities, come up with forest guards and so on that could address the problem. So if they can come together, I think in that case they can also come up with a bill that will help.
Such bills, from experience, do not work.
Okay.
Let me give you an example. We had OMPADEC. You may remember. Yes. We had, today we have NNDC, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is the story different? We have HYPADEC. Is the story different from the complaints of people that provide hydro and so on? We now have the
Northwest Development.
What's the difference?
So it was just a quantity, so to speak.
What should have been the focus is that let the local government function effectively. These are at the grassroots. They can be provided with necessary funds, with expertise to govern those ungovernable spaces.
That's right.
Yes.
Okay.
And that will make it a difference. At the state level, the function of the state, I don't think any state in Nigeria perform more than 15% of the function provided by the Constitution. So if you do not have to ensure that those functions are taking place, ungovernance will continue to be. Insecurity will continue to be there. For instance, take for example, today state government are involved directly in issues of security, because some of the states have established different kind of outfit, and then the police is there, which is the constitutionally recognized, and we have other agencies, the military and others. Yes, but well, there are some progress. But tell me, in the last 11 years, have we changed the narrative in terms of security breaches, security challenges?
So we must engage active governance at the local level.
Not only active governance, but it should be governance that provide results. Today we are talking about democratic dividend. Everywhere you go, in the last 23 years, based on the provisions made by the federal government for the provision of water, electricity, and so on and so forth. Take, for instance, even electricity, the Obasanjo regime, how much?
About 18 billion.
Yes, why is the result? Take, for instance, the Jonathan administration, why is the result? Buhari's administration.
It's still the same old story.
So these are the issues. The issue is good governance, not only good governance, institutions that are meant to provide those
services.
Yes, at the grassroots, at the state level, must function.
That's right.
Ministries and agencies today, many of them have even abandoned their mandate, have created new mandate, and implementing the mandate. We have to go back and ensure that what is the mandate of an organization is there, and that those responsible should do that function. And that if they don't, there are many Nigerians waiting to have jobs. Let them go and let's have those who will take over and do
the right thing. Right. Okay. We've taken a lot of time looking at the tidbits, even though they are also very much relevant with policies and so on. But then our subject matter, we're looking at these top policy options that were taken by the Tinubu administration and how they are affecting the general livelihood of the people. Take for instance, let's start with the subsidy on petrol, which was one of the key decisions taken by the government. At the point Nigerians are raising concerns over the cost of living crisis as a result of this subsidy issue. The government insisted that these policies are for the good of the people, and then insisted also that these policies are not reversible. They will navigate through the challenges and so on. But then what is coming out now is that this policy has come back worse than it used to be. What do you make up with that?
Well, first of all, if you look at the history of subsidy removal, very long time, it has been the same cycle.
Okay.
You remove the subsidy and you have impact on the social living condition of the people, and then we get adjusted. After fully adjusting, we have another dose of subsidy removal, to the extent that the quantum of subsidy has reached an extent that nobody can tell you the exact figure of subsidy that we have. Now, as well as nobody can tell you the exact consumption in terms of million of liters of petrol, and therefore how much the subsidy should be, how much it ought to be. These are the issues now. Now, the issue of removal of subsidy, I've said several times, is that it is necessary to remove. But the problem is that where do the subsidies go?
What the savings?
Yes, where do they go?
Okay, that's right.
The saving. We are yet to see any tangible manifestation of the removal over time. Right.
In the last 9 months.
The only thing we saw probably, perhaps, is the ETF. I mean the Buhari's
the PTF,
Petroleum Trust Fund. Yes, we have seen
dividends. Because there was visible developmental projects, in the healthcare, transportation, and so on.
Besides that, today nobody can tell you clearly this is where the subsidy has been invested, and these are the results.
Is it the absence, for instance, of? Sorry, I interrupted.
Yes,
is it the absence of a clear-cut, maybe agency or policy direction as to how to reinvest this subsidy? Because even Jonathan administration, at the point it removed partial removal of subsidy, there was a subsidy reinvestment program.
Yes.
I think the SHWAPI also.
Yes.
So in this case, we're told that subsidy has been removed, and then at some point Nigerians were told that substantial amount of money in trillions have been realized.
Yes.
But how it is being expended is what is
even the impact of SHWAPI. Where is it? Can you find it? So these are the questions. First of all, the major issue is that have you actually verified the quantum of subsidy and those who claim the subsidy, whether it is true or not? Nobody can tell you, because over time we are told we consume 24 million liters in a day. It becomes 34.
No
40,
specific.
60. Today is 100 or more. Nobody can tell.
At some point they will tell you also it declined. Like after the subsidy removal, there was this claim that consumption has reduced.
Yes, consumption will naturally be reduced because since there is no money in the pocket, the normal consumption you have to reduce it.
That's right.
And when you reduce it, the consumption will reduce. But what is the quantum of subsidy that's based on that reduction in terms of consumption rate and where it is? This is the issue. Till today, nobody will tell. But there is an important issue which we have been missing. Now, if you remove the subsidy, it means you are going to save. Isn't it?
That is the bottom line.
Yes, since we are importing at a point in time, and that you allow the naira to float, and then suddenly the dollar,
right.
That means you will pay more to import. And therefore the subsidy, if there is, will go where?
Will be eaten by the import.
This is the issue, and yet this issue has not been resolved. Even though we are told that there is a decline in terms of demand in dollars, but is it...
And beyond that, we are also told that Port Harcourt refinery is back on stream.
Yes.
Dangote refinery has become functional.
Yes.
I think just yesterday or today, I read somewhere that marketers have started even getting supplies from the Dangote refinery.
Yes.
So to what extent will that change the narrative?
Yes, it will change if we are actually not telling stories about subsidy. One, if you import, you have to pay for the transportation. Here, there is no transportation from a far land to Nigeria. Two, you have to pay for insurance. That insurance no longer exists. Therefore, two. Then you have to have pay tax at the port. Yes. Then you have to have a depot where it will be kept, and then you have to all these the prices that are on top of that.
They add up to the
are no longer there. So the question is that will the price be maintained or come down? If it doesn't come down, then people will start. Is it a scam? Is it a reality that the production in Nigeria will impact on the economy?
But isn't that what Nigerians are seeing? Because
how much is the price?
It remains where it
is. So that's the issue. That's the issue. She did, because these are the factors that naturally will slide down the price, because Dangote is in Lagos, in Port Harcourt, and then what? All these costs are no longer there, then the price per liter will what? Naturally.
Could that also be attributed to the market forces? Because what they will tell you is that the regulation means allowing the market forces to play, and then, I mean, there shouldn't be interference. The market should decide, you know. So we haven't seen the market forces also aligning with the...
Production normally decides. The production price of a commodity determines the price, because everyone is interested in making profit. You cannot produce to make a loss. So since it is produced somewhere in Nigeria, then the cost of production should be lesser when it is when the petrol is imported, is exported, then refined elsewhere, and there are other benefits out of what we import from. It's just the petroleum, the gasoline, and
the other byproducts.
Which Dangote will utilize, which the Port Harcourt refinery will utilize. And this form part of the profit the investors in those companies will make. And therefore, it's not the petrol, but the byproduct. Yes, that will make the price to go down. But as you are saying, will the price go down? Will we see it down? And then these are the questions.
Okay, yes. And even before then, there has been concerns around, okay, how is Nigeria stabilizing the fuel pump price? For instance, it has been fluctuating in the international market. You know, the claim, even, I mean, what RFI was saying yesterday was that Nigerians should ask themselves, where is diesel today? It's around 1,000 plus per liter. So ordinarily, if the federal government is not providing subsidy, the fuel also ought to have been more than 1,000 naira. And it remains where it is. Where are they getting the money to stabilize the price? That has been also
well, the stabilization of a price, of a particular price change, normally takes a long time. For instance, if today the crude market price drops, then the supply will take the next 1 or 2 months to be in the country. By that time, maybe the price will have fluctuated. So the result is that there will be no difference. Because it drops at the time you purchase, and then when it's arriving, the price is going up. How do you make the difference? So because it is not immediate. It is not immediate. What is important in any economy is the domestic production that determines the stability
of the price
of any product in the economy. And most of the things we consume come from outside the country. Let me give you just a small example. From what you are wearing, right from your cap down to your shoe, what is made in Nigeria? What is it made in Nigeria?
That's what matters. How is it added value to the economy?
It has an added value because you took your naira, exchange the dollar, and bought all the things. Most of them finish good. The thread, the cloth, the shoe, the wristwatch, those
the
gadgets, everything. So you ask yourself, if there is no such kind of production in Nigeria, will you ever imagine any fluctuation in any factor production elsewhere will likely bring any benefit to Nigeria? These are the issues.
Right. Okay. Now, looking at, I understand, just like you mentioned, production, plays a substantial part of, mix. But then there are also concerns that the federal government is using the NNPCL, for instance, the company, to sort of, provide some support, if you like, or some bridge the gap, so to speak, in terms of the financing now. That's what helped, stabilize the crude oil price. At some point, the CBN, the NNPCL GMD was talking about, told Nigerians that there is not going to be an increase in pump price anymore, even with the fluctuation in the international market.
Yes.
So some felt that the NNPC will now be upsetting some of those.
You must pay the difference.
Yes.
Who pays the difference? Probably NNPC.
And by extension, federal government.
Yes, by extension, federal government. From which funds? That's the question.
Yeah.
From their profit or from the revenue that we generate and share on monthly basis as a federation account or what? Nobody can say because it's not clear. Nobody has told Nigeria how it is done, and that is why people speculate that it is no longer that subsidy has returned and so on and so forth. We are yet to hear from the government.
That's right.
And then we are told by Rufai that
yes, we're subsidizing.
So unless the government clearly comes out and says this is the subsidy, we may not understand all the things that are going on because there is no transparency and accountability in terms of all these activities are on.
Yeah, but isn't it a key component, a very important factor in governance? Perhaps public trust, building public trust by being transparent and accountable in governance business.
Yes, it is. Even in the dictatorial system of government, it is essential that there are some level of transparency, some level of accountability, which create confidence between the governed and the government.
Right.
And that sustain support, and that sustain the implementation of various policies in the country. But in a democracy, openness is very, very important. And that is why liberty, human right, is very important in democracy. And that's what the all democratic constitution provides. And therefore, that's why we have the Freedom of Information Act, which unfortunately is not implementable because you can apply and only God knows.
It's one thing to apply, is another to get the result. Details.
Yes, the information you require.
That's right.
Sometimes court compel agencies to give, but yet you end up not getting information. But it is important that in any system of government, at the local, at the state, the federal agencies, should provide room for provision of necessary information which citizens are required to even undertake certain activity. For instance, there are statistical information that is required either for research, for public consumption, but they do not exist. And therefore, for instance, the Minister of Trade and Industry would not even provide.
He's talking about unspecified, substantial number.
Unverified, and so on. So that tells you that people will continue to develop the feeling that are they doing it right or is it true or not. And these are negative aspects of relationship that normally are created between citizen, the citizen and the government in terms of policy implementation, policy effort, and sometimes even when policy are reversed.
But yes, we're talking about petrol subsidy and implementation and the outcome and so on. But on the other hand, talking about the naira, the forex stabilization.
Yes.
It is obvious. I mean, there are also figures out there. For instance, I looked at the Bloomberg report, which was talking about how government is depleting, the forex reserve.
Yes.
It has gone down by 5.6%, and this is what has been used to stabilize the naira, so to speak. So, where are we now? We are neither here nor there in terms of.
In most developing countries are interested in beefing up their foreign reserves rather than
depleting it.
Yes, but foreign reserve is not meant to be. It has certain economic indicators that make the economy stronger, but you need to provide for your country the most essential, the most fundamental, and then it is the foreign reserve you use. But what is important is that for any economy to thrive, the responsibility of government is also to stabilize the economy. And so stabilization have so many intervening
layers.
Yes, subsidy is one. Subsidy is one. Subsidy not only in terms of providing for the subsidy petroleum, but other sectors,
essential
basic needs,
healthcare,
agri,
housing,
and so on. Housing. All these are essential to stabilize the economy. There are other factors. Production is very critical.
Yes, I keep emphasizing on production. We'll come back to it because it's also very central.
Very critical.
Yes.
All other economic factors depend on the productivity of an economy. You cannot use a monetary policy when the economy, when there is no. The same with fiscal policy and other policies. Economic growth depend on your productivity. And the monetary policy, the fiscal policy, and other are substantially anchored on those factors. So no one can exist on its own. And that is what ensures that the economy, the foreign exchange, that is the value of your money in terms of exchange on any currency depend. For instance, in Nigeria, over the years, especially in the last 1 decade, the dollar was being pushed not by productivity, but by corruption. You steal from the public sector and you buy the dollars and keep. So production.
Speculation is what drives.
Not only speculation, outright. Yes. Why do we keep dollars? Why do we keep dollars? Why do you prefer to keep dollars? Because you are economic.
And that is detrimental to the growth of the local currency.
It is not the production that sustains the relationship between the dollar and the naira, but rather unproductive ventures.
Activity.
Yes. And once the productivity sustains that, there is no need to even sustain it to support the currency. Although support of the currency is necessary and essential in terms of central bank intervention and others, but the quantum of intervention is so huge that it cannot be productive. In the case of
so is it the right thing to do, for instance, because there has been public outcry, concern in respect to the rising dollar, and then government decides to deplete, the forex reserve. I mean, to the extent that it has declined to, the decline it has seen has never been seen since 2020, for instance, 4 years back. We're talking about a very substantial decline, and it's still going. What would be the implication of this, going forward?
There are so many implications, but what is important is that no economy can continue to grow the foreign reserve without looking back at factors that sustain that and the other factors that ensure the stability of the economy and the productivity of various sectors of the economy is very important.
Why is it sustainable? Because yes, we keep support.
There is no question about whether it's sustainable. It is natural that it grows and that it fluctuates. Nobody can raise any question about whether it should be static. Yes, no, it has to fluctuate, and because there are. But what is the question that is most important is when it is deflating, where do money go? Nobody can tell you exactly what happened, but the nation has certain obligations, and it must sustain and fulfill those obligations. We do not know as at now what were the obligations that led to the yes, but it is natural that such fluctuating.
Even though the CBN did say that it has cleared some of those, forest obligations that have been accumulating over time.
You can see one of the factors.
So I'm running into billions. I think 7 billion or so dollars. So that's where it is actually going, according to the CBN. And that's what is, to a large extent, also helping the naira to stabilize or to regain its
value.
Yes. So, but then the concern is, just like I said earlier, Nigerians are looking up to the impact of this. Some say beyond just, working towards the recovery of the naira, Nigerians are more concerned about the high-level inflation, which has, triggered or which has been impacting on the cost of living.
Yes.
And that has not been substantially addressed.
Well, to address this issue, I will go back to the issue of production. And infrastructure. When you have this and the economic environment is viable for venture, then that will be sustained over time. It will stabilize. But one thing you should always take into consideration is the fact that if a country is a consuming country and you have to use dollar to import everything almost under the sun, and that dollar stabilize and then increases again, then the issue is this: will there be any time when you have the prices of goods and services going down, when all factors of production, especially
are import based,
and that your export does not matter in terms of your productivity, then you should not expect anything other than this. The economy has been sustained over time through subsidy, and now the reality has happened, and that the dollar is the determinant factor of production, in the sense that you import everything. If the dollars go up, what you purchase, the price will what? And then and that's why companies that cannot sustain their product,
they have to.
These are the issues.
Right. So how do we encourage this productivity with this attitude, with this kind of policies that are interventionist and that are more of a palliative than addressing the key issues? The power sector, for instance, is crumbling.
Yes, we must provide infrastructure in terms of power sector, road infrastructure.
Tax incentives, that's the policy option.
Yes, these are even if there are tax incentives and there are no infrastructure to support economic development, do you think the tax incentive will work? We have so many incentive regimes all over. Some are utilized, some are not utilized, but what are the critical factors? Is it not infrastructure? Are they available? The cost of electricity to a businessman is very important. It's factored into the price of
Here we are with even removal of subsidy on electricity, which has also affected businesses. And we are intervening with
so these are the issue. Unless you have unless we face the issue of production and infrastructure that supports production, I think we will continue to be interventionist government. Over time, every government that will come will create interventionist policies. The central bank will tell you the monetary policy and the fiscal policy are working, and the import policy and so on and so forth are working, and yet results will not be realized, and democratic dividend will not be in place.
Thank you very much, Professor Hussaini Tukur, for your informed perspectives. We really appreciate your analysis. We also hope to have you some other time on the platform.
Thank you very much.
And viewers, this is a wrap on today's package of Daily Politics. You can do well by joining us also tomorrow, where we'll be back with another interesting topic and personalities. Until then, on behalf of the technical crew, I am Shafiu Suleiman, thanking you for investing your time with us.